for joining me again and welcome back. I'm going to schmooze today with a friend who is one of the most talented young filmmakers to come out of Israel onto the international scene. And I'll tell you a little bit about him, and then we'll schmooze. And we may even schmooze with some of the little ones in the background, since this is an unofficial schmooze event. My friend was born in Tel Aviv and began his career as a reporter for the Israeli Sports Channel. And he has worked on a series, for example, with National Geographic Society. His films have won a slew of prestigious awards, including Best Indie Film of 2014, Best Film at the Haifa International Film Festival, and an Israeli Academy Award for his film 39 Pounds of Love that he wrote, produced, and directed. His film has been on HBO, and it was shortlisted for the Oscars. On the Map, the story of Maccabi Tel Aviv's stunning triumph in the 1977 European Basketball Championships, his full-length feature, and his latest is a moving portrait of the great American Israeli basketball star, Alcy Perry, which we will be talking about. We'll talk about all of them. He is a speaker and film juror at international festivals around the world, as well as a film professor in universities in the U.S. And all that, and hasn't even reached his 25th birthday. Actually, we'll double that. We'll double that. I'm talking about my dear friend Dani Menkin. Welcome, Dani. Thank you for joining me. Just give you a little list of his films that I am so fond of, and everyone: 39 Pounds of Love, Dolphin Boy, which we have to talk about, Jem, I Love You, Terminal, Is That You, On the Map, The Picture of His Life, and the latest, Alcy. So, Dani, first of all, how are you? I mean, you're at home, I'm at home. We're coping with this. We're still coping with the pandemic, and it looks like it's not going to be over soon. How are you doing? How are you coping?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's here to stay. So what we have done, we started Quarantine International Film Festival, we called it, where we showed each week another film, and we've done some Q&As, and I'm, doing Zoom talks because I used to travel a lot to festivals, and I am working a lot on developments. So it's a great time to write, and it's a challenge. There is a saying in Hebrew, צרת רבים חצי נחמה, or צרת רבים נחמה טיפשים, however you want to call it. So
Translation be
the translation is, when it's a problem for all. It's a half, you know, how do you translate it? There are things that it's not translated
I
so
know,
well.
yeah.
It's
We get the gist of it. But
exactly. It's like bringing hummus to America. It's not. It doesn't work.
yeah, but I guess we need a certain kind of character to be able to do that. When you know that you get up in the morning, you don't have anything on your schedule, you
Yeah.
have to, have that kind of, what's the word? Um, the ability to create a new
Yeah.
reality, a new way of
Yeah.
life.
So
Discipline. That's the word I'm looking for. Discipline.
right. So I think, Mike, for people like us, and first, I mean, it's an honor because, Mike, I admire you for since I was born.
Oh,
And
thank you.
as you mentioned, I was born very just
19,
lately, but I'm
1970. I know when you were born, 1970.
I'm a 70 product, and in 70 you were already my birthday in Israel, and now I'm teaching my kids hippo, AO hippo, and you may hear them around now in the background. But I
Good,
think
good.
for what we are doing, in many ways, it's not that different because people are asking me sometimes what am I working on, and the word working doesn't translate to really what I'm doing because we're not really working. I mean, I speak on my, if I can speak on myself, I don't feel I'm working. Many times I say to myself, oh my gosh, I worked so hard. I'm going to take 10 days in Mexico and I'm going to just rest after this crazy project. I found myself quickly on vacation writing.
Yeah.
So I'm not really working because we love what we do. So there is a saying that I open is that you with that if you do what you love, you're not going to work a day in your life. So now when there is this pandemic and we're at home, when you'll see my kids and they're going to run around pretty soon while we're doing this is much harder work than just telling a story and putting some music into it and putting some love into it. And it's really love, for me, 39 pounds of love was really a labor of love. I called it at the beginning 39 pounds. And people that want to see our trailers, it's all at heyjudeproductions.com, and we may be able to incorporate some here on the notes or while we're showing, while we're talking.
It is easily one of the greatest sporting accomplishments ever.
Maccabi carried the hopes of a nation.
It just came out of my heart.
אנחנו במפה ואנחנו נשארים במפה, לא רק בספורט, לא הכל.
Let's talk a little bit about how you started. You started out in Israel, as I said, as a journalist, basically, right?
I really wanted to be a soccer player,
Oh,
and I
okay.
think until today that I should have been. I think it's a big mistake. Israeli national team hasn't acquired me, and they're paying for it since the 70s, because 1970 was the last year we made it to the World Cup, and that's the year I was born. And until today, I think I should have been one of the greatest players ever. I can never prove it, except when I play with my kids and then I get injured. But I love sport, and then I joined the sport channel. So in the 90s, they opened the sport channel. I already realized I will not be part of um, the soccer team or the Israeli national soccer team. And there is a saying: if you can't beat them, unless either join them or report on them. So I became a reporter, and I joined the sport channel. And very quickly after, I realized that what I am doing, there is a name to it, and that's a director. I didn't even know that I'm a director. I didn't know that when I put music and I'm telling a story about this guy or that guy, I just felt like I'm having fun. And thank God I do feel like that until today. But I wanted to evolve. And as a soccer player, you want to play in Europe. And as a basketball player, you want to go to the NBA. And as a filmmaker, you want to come to Hollywood. And I felt that in many ways my films were more Americans. They were more influenced by the American independent film. Films like people like Richard Linklater, Alexander Pine. I just loved them. Of course, I loved Spielberg. Everybody loved Spielberg. I never knew that I would be a partner of his sister, who
Of
is a
Nancy.
mutual friend and an
Yeah.
Nancy Spielberg, an incredible partner, incredible supporter, and a friend. But at that point, I realized that I want to make films uh, and show them in the US. So I was lucky that my first film, more than 15 years ago, was on HBO. One Israeli Academy Awards, was shortlisted for the Oscars, and my international career kind of like took off.
And that was 39 pounds of, that was the first one?
39 pounds of love. That's where when I started before, and I said I added the word love to it. It used to
Love.
be called just 39 pounds, but then I realized, you know what? No, it's really 39 pounds of love, and it's about someone who suffered from a rare form of muscular dystrophy. It was really a labor of love, and I followed him all the way to the U.S. to look for his doctor that thought he's not going to pass the age of 6. He was already 34 years old, and it was a love story. It reminded me a little bit of my left foot,
Right.
and he did animations with the only finger he moved, one finger, and he controlled the mouth. And I think it was one of the first documentaries that um, uh, incorporated animations in it. So I always wanted to make documentaries feel like fiction, and I loved my fiction to feel real and honest. So that was kind of my style. People say that in your first movie you make all the mistakes, and those mistakes become your style. So that
That, and
became kind of
that should be your worst mistake. But by the way, all these films that we're talking about are available, right? For example, 39, is it on, is it streaming
so
anywhere?
many of my films are on Amazon, but many are just people are asking for them at my website, heyjudeproductions.com, which maybe we'll be able to put it
Sure.
somewhere on the notes. Hey Jude is from the line of the Beatles, take a sad song and make it better. Because all my films have some kind of bittersweetness in them, and I'm trying to just bring positive stories to the world. So
I
take a
was
sad song, make it better. Hey Jude Productions.
I was going to ask you. You just answered my question. Why, Hey Jude? I just heard the explanation. Tell me when did you arrive here in the United States?
So when I've done 39 pounds of love, it was a road trip in the United States to look for that doctor. I just stayed in the US. And what happened is that my film was premiered on HBO. And at the opening night, big event on HBO, and I met Miriam, who is a good friend of Tiona and you
Yes.
guys. And that's why you can understand why we fell in love. I definitely understand why you fell in love with Tiona. And I finished my big project, 39 pounds of love, and I started my other big project is having a family.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and Miriam and I stayed in the U.S. We were going back and forth between Israel and the States, but even though I bring some of my films and my stories from Israel, I still am based mostly here in LA, and we live here.
Well, speaking of your stories coming from Israel, I mean, there's so many. I mean, we will have to do this again, but I want to concentrate on two especially. Uh, on the map, I guess you're probably very well known around the world for that particular project. Let's talk a little bit about on the map because first of all, the story itself is pretty much part of Israel's history, we should say, not just sports history, but it put Israel on the map in more than in one way. Talk a little bit about how you got to it, how you came to it, what the story is about. I mean, we all know, but give me a little tamtzit of how did you come to the story to produce
So,
this?
Israel 1970s, what did we have? We were post Yom Kippur War. This story is really one of my first childhood memories because Israel didn't have a lot. Then they had Tal Brody, Maccabi Tel Aviv, and Kuni Lemel.
So that's
Right.
thank you for putting us together. Tal Brody, of course, is our great basketball hero. Maccabi Tel Aviv is the basketball team, and Kuni Lemel was my movie. So it's kind of a 1970s cultural icons, I guess you could say.
Right, and when I was approached to see if I can even say something new about this story, because in Israel it is like a moment like the first man walking on the moon. Everyone remembers where they were when Maccabi Tel Aviv beat the Russians, and then later won the European Championship. And the same day, the Prime Minister of Israel resigning. So it was not only the story of that team; it was really the story of the country. It was in many ways the Forrest Gump of Israel's history. We have Entebbe, the Yom Kippur War, the Russians, the peace process. Rabin resigned the day of the game. Moshe Dayan coming to every game. So it really is something that combines so many other things. And when I was traveling in festivals with my feature film, Is That You? I met Nancy Spielberg. And Nancy made a wonderful film with Roberta Grossman named Above and Beyond. And it was about American pilots coming to help Israel in the independent war. And I told her, look, I'm working about American basketball players coming to put Israel on the map. They all didn't make it to the NBA. One gave up on the NBA, Tal Brody. And we joined forces, and people knew about the Miracle on Ice because there was a big movie about it. But for us, on the map is bigger because it's ours. It's the Miracle on Hardwood.
Let me just back up a little bit for those who are not familiar with it. We're talking about a final basketball game that took place between Israel, the Israeli team Maccabi Tel Aviv, and the Russian, well, at the time, the Soviet team, and it was a miraculous event. To just give you a little bit about the background. And the film deals with the build-up to that final game and all the problems that arose, both the logistical problems and the political problems, and the final triumph of Israel over this monstrosity that was called the Soviet team it was CSKA, right?
Yeah, CSKA Moscow, the Russians. They didn't want to play against Israel. They didn't recognize the country. And Maccabi Tel Aviv proved them wrong. It's the classical David against Goliath, the underdog able to prevail. And we were also very fortunate to work with John Weinbach, who is the producer of The Last Dance, now, the Michael Jordan series, and he made a movie about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And we managed to interview David Stern, commissioner of the NBA, that unfortunately passed away not too long ago, Bill Walton, so really American icons that knew about this story, but so many haven't known. So I think the reason the movie was so successful is A, because so many didn't know about it, and B, because it really tells the entire history of the country. You were there, Mike. You know that when Tal Brody says, we are on the map, he said something that became kind of the 11th commandment. It was, okay, you know what? This really brought Israel from one generation to the other. Israel is not the underdog anymore.
Right. The saying that he said, "Anachnu ala mapa," which bamapa, which translates we're on the map. In other words, we made it.
Basketball was the #1 topic in Israel.
When I got there, I was really surprised because inside me, I realized that we had a chance to do something.
Maccabi Tel Aviv playing for the European Cup Championship? Are you kidding me? Who are these guys?
It wasn't that long after the war. The country was starving for something that lifted the country.
Moshe Dayan was the most recognizable face in the world except for Muhammad Ali. He was at every one of our games and shaking our hands, and afterwards the battle begins.
Moshe Dayan coming to shake the other team's hand is an intimidation.
For the Russian team, they knew that they had the best team in Europe. They beat the American team in the Olympics.
Red Army Moscow had all of the great players from the national team. Maccabi carried the hopes of a nation.
My first thought was, damn.
There was no reason to expect Maccabi could beat Red Army Moscow.
Yes, Perry.
The streets were empty. You couldn't get a taxi. Nothing moved. The excitement was just too much. I wanted more.
There are some things that are more important than sport.
It is easily one of the greatest sporting accomplishments ever.
All that excitement, all that pride, it just came out of my heart.
And to follow that now, after all these years, with your new project, which I attended the first screening in Israel about a year ago, I think. And let's talk a little bit about that, which actually is a follow-up, you could say a direct transition from On the Map to Allsy. And we're talking about your latest project about Allsy Perry. Tell us a little bit about how that came about.
So after the success of On the Map, we launched a non-for-profit that we called On the Map Foundation. And for those who want to see On the Map, you're welcome to go to heyjudproductions.com and contact us, and we're happy to give you links wherever you are in the world. But the movie that I really wanted to tell before that was Allsy. So the idea is that I wanted to make a feature film narrative about Allsy. So I started to write the screenplay on his life. And I'm also writing the screenplay on the Map and on Duffy Boy. There is a big movement now in Hollywood making feature based on documentaries. And when I was writing the story of Allsy is starting to tell me so many stories, reveal so many secrets. And I said, the documentary in me said, I must capture it. So here's a guy.
Yeah, Dani, tell us, I'm sorry, tell us a little bit about, I mean, we're talking about Allsy. I know, you know, so many Israelis know, but who is Allsy Perry?
Here's a guy that was born in Newark, New Jersey, saw the riots, saw racism in his life, and he knows that the only thing that can get him out of the hood will be basketball, make it to the NBA, and he's the last one to be cut from the Knicks. And after he's cut from the Knicks, it's either he's back in the hood or he's going to make it somehow to Europe and on a verge of being totally unemployed, depressed, or whatever. Somebody comes from Israel named Shamluk, offers him very little money, but please come and play in Israel. He thought Israel is just a place with camels, no basketball, but he was so desperate that he said, even for Israel, I will say yes. And he comes and he's changing the country. He's changing his life. He's becoming Jewish, becoming part of the country. He's falling in love with the top model of Israel, Tammy Ben-Ami. So they are becoming the power couple of the country, like the Brejolina of Israel. Everybody follows them. And he's like an icon. He's like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, multiple plus 15. And then, unfortunately, when his career was about to be over, he's falling into drugs. One game he doesn't show up, and he's talking about everything for the first time in our film. I'm not going to reveal to you and spoil it to you too much, but that's basically the story of Allsy, which is unbelievable.
Where do I start my story? When I was 13 and a half, gangs were all the way across. I only could stay 2 blocks, and no blocks there.
basketball was his way out of the ghetto.
I was young. I knew that he loved me, but I knew that he loved basketball too.
I saw him play. I said, I want you to come over to play in Israel.
Where?
All Steve Perry was Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar rolled into one. He turns himself and his team into the kings of Europe.
The moment he looked at her, that was it. I think it was love at first sight.
She was the big European model, one of the top 10, and he was the basketball superstar.
It was a phenomenon in the late 70s.
Tammy wasn't sure she would marry him. They were the first mixed couple. She was Jewish and he wasn't.
But all the joy and excitement inside it was a dead feeling. I started to take a lot of pain pills.
He was in Tommy's apartment. He wasn't really moving. She was scared he was dead.
He was different. Cuckoo, different.
I always knew one thing, that I wanted to tell you my story, the way it is.
And has it been released yet?
We had an incredible premiere in the Lincoln Center in New York in January with Allsty, sold out. Another screening also sold out. And then we started a few festivals. We won awards. We won already 2 awards. And then guess what happened in March in the world?
Yes, we know.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you heard, but something happened in March. So we put the film right now on the freezer, and we can't wait to defreeze it and bring it back to the world, because it's interesting, because I never thought the relationship between African Americans and Jews will be so relevant as it is today.
What about the future, Dani? I know we are now living in an alternate reality, basically. We can't do the kind of projects that we're used to doing. We have to adapt to a new technology like we're doing right now. But how do you see it going forward? Because as we said at the beginning, it may be here to stay. I hope, I hope not. But what happens if we have to begin this new way of, I don't want to say working again, but this new way of creating? I mean, what we do basically, we are artists, we create, we are technicians. How do you see it going forward? I mean, up till now, you've been working on features, but we don't know whether features are going to be screened in the near future. Right now, everything seems to be going to streaming. All these streaming companies are looking for product. They're hungry for product as people at home. And how do you see it going forward as far as what your plans are?
So one of the films that I've done in the past was about Shimon Peres. I've done it for the Israeli TV, and he used to love quoting that line of optimists and pessimists die the same, but they live differently. So I think for us as creators, we always live in uncertainty. We do not know what's the next gig, what will happen, how will our next film be. So on that aspect, I feel like I'm in a familiar territory, because we have so many unknown factors when we are working. My feeling is, because I'm bringing relatively small movies, and I'm right now working, turning my documentaries like On the Map, like Allsty, like Dolphin Boy, into feature film, and they are relatively small. If we talk about Dolphin Boy, for example, it's a smaller cast film. So my hope is that when we will reopen the sets, films like that will be in the front line more than the bigger films, action, or all the other things that I'm not really doing. So that's how I see it. I don't see ourselves. I don't think we will ever stop creating. By definition, Mike, what you have done for so many years and what we are doing, we are creators. So it means that even now we have to find creative ways to bring our stories to the world, like what we do now. I
Yeah.
mean, you have started this incredible Mike Burstyn with friends here in Zoom, and it's on YouTube. But you're finding ways around it. That's the only way we will be able to tell our stories, because at the end of the day, we are storytellers. That's what we are living for, and that's our oxygen.
Yeah, the word that you use, creative, is so important. We have to find new ways to be creative. And I always have said the same thing. We're storytellers. Basically, if there's a story, people will uh, will uh, um, will come. You know, they will respond if you tell a good story. It all starts with a story, and you are a magnificent storyteller, Dani. And I want to thank you. I mean, we could go on, but I urge everyone to go to your website, which is Hey Jude Productions.
HeyJudeProductions.com.
HeyJudeProductions.com. You'll get all the information there. And let's keep our fingers crossed for Allsee. As soon as it's available, I'll be there. I'm always there. Whenever you invite me, I'll be the first one there. And the main thing is, let's stay healthy, Dani. That's so important for us, for our future. So I'm going to ask you a question I always ask my friends towards the end of the schmooze that we have. If I were to ask you for one person that inspired you, either your career or your life, one individual, can you think of who that might be?
Yeah, for me, it's very easy. It's Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney.
And the reason is that you'll see somebody who's pushing towards his 80s. He does not need any money. He doesn't need to prove anything. He has done, he's an icon. He's like a Beethoven. He's the Beatles. But he still loves it. He's out there. He's, bringing new songs. He's going on concerts just because he loves it. There is no other reason for him to do it. Just the fact that he does love it. And he also does make some positive statements, and just an incredible personality. Now, I can give you a few more that are really an inspiration for me, but he's one of them. But I will say, Mike, people like you that are so talented and humble and wonderful and accommodating are inspiration. So
Thank you.
before we are filmmakers, before we are creators, we're humans.
Yeah.
And I think under the definition of human, they should be your picture.
Oh, come on. Well, I think humility is very important as well. We have to be humble because we are really blessed. All of us who are able to do what we love to do, we're blessed, and we have to give back. So that's what we're doing, each one of us in our way. So Dani, thank you, my dear friend. And as I always say, my motto, carpe diem, which is seize the day, tfos et hayom. We have to do that. Thank you, my friend. Love you.
Love you too, Mike. Thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye. And thank you, folks, for joining us again. See you next time.